For centuries, the very name Viking conjured images of fearsome warriors with horned helmets and bloodthirsty axes, pillaging coastal settlements and striking terror into the hearts of all who crossed their path. But the reality of Viking raids is far more complex and fascinating than mere Hollywood stereotypes. From the late 8th to the mid-11th centuries, Scandinavia erupted with a surge of activity, the era of the Vikings. These fierce seafarers weren't just bloodthirsty raiders, though that image certainly sticks. They were farmers, traders, explorers, and even skilled artisans, leaving an indelible mark on history that far exceeds their fearsome reputation. These daring expeditions, often shrouded in myth and legend, played a significant role in shaping the course of history in Europe and beyond. The primary motivation for Viking raids was acquiring wealth. Monasteries and wealthy settlements, often undefended and filled with valuable treasures like gold, silver, and religious artifacts, were prime targets. Since these religious men were vulnerable and weak in the eyes of the Vikings, they were an easy target, and it took just a few Vikings to attack these monasteries, something which was seen as terrifying to attack men of God. They also attacked in order to acquire slaves. Vikings captured slaves during raids, using them as laborers, concubines, or even selling them for profit in thriving slave markets. And while less common, some raids aimed to conquer and settle new territories. The establishment of Viking kingdoms in Normandy, Ireland, and parts of England stands as a testament to this ambition. Internal power struggles within Scandinavia could sometimes push ambitious leaders to launch raids as a way to gain prestige and solidify their hold on power. For more fierce battles and attacks, Vikings relied heavily upon well-calculated strategies. They would ambush their opponents and launch a surprise attack on them with speed and swiftness, and often launched attacks at dawn, catching sleepy settlements and monasteries unprepared. The element of surprise was a key factor in their success. Vikings relied on their swift, maneuverable ships, known as snekkjes, to launch surprise attacks. Their ships could navigate shallow waters, allowing them to reach inland targets with ease. Viking warriors were skilled sailors, utilizing the wind and tides to their advantage. Their knowledge of coastal routes and hidden coves allowed them to strike at unguarded locations. They could disembark large numbers of warriors swiftly, overwhelming defenders before they could organize resistance. A formidable defensive formation, the shield wall protected Vikings from arrows and sword strikes while they advanced relentlessly, chanting war cries, displaying gruesome trophies, and setting fire to buildings instilled fear and demoralized defenders. You know, every country has a special force in the military. So is the case with the Vikings. They had a special team known as the Berserkers. The Berserkers of the Viking Age hold a captivating yet complex place in history. Often shrouded in myth and exaggeration, these fierce warriors undoubtedly played a role in Viking raids, inspiring both awe and terror. Berserkers were likely warriors who entered a state of heightened emotional and physical arousal during battle. This could involve ritualistic practices, chanting, and possibly the use of psychoactive substances, leading to increased aggression and pain tolerance. Berserkers could act as shock troops, breaking enemy lines and causing fear through their ferocity. During raids, Berserkers might be deployed as shock troops, their ferocity breaking enemy lines and spreading panic. Their unpredictable behavior and disregard for pain made them formidable opponents, instilling fear and demoralizing defenders. While effective in the heat of battle, Berserkers could also be uncontrollable, posing a danger to their own allies. Additionally, their reliance on trance-like states might leave them vulnerable during specific moments. To effectively launch and win these battles, the Vikings used a number of equipments from swords, to a rain of bows and arrows and many more. Their arsenal was a potent mix of fearsome weapons and innovative tactics, designed to secure plunder, territory, and dominance. The quintessential Viking weapon, the axe, embodied their raw power and ferocity. Vikings favored single-handed axes with broad blades, perfect for cleaving through shields and flesh. The axes were different in form, size, and usage. Featuring a curved extension below the blade, the bearded axe could hook shields and disarm opponents. The Dane axe was heavier, with a wider blade and longer haft, delivered devastating blows, capable of splitting skulls and shattering bones. While not as ubiquitous as axes, Viking swords were prized possessions, symbolizing status and skill. They were typically double-edged and shorter than their later medieval counterparts, optimized for slashing and thrusting in close combat. There were also different types of swords. The importance of swords to the Vikings cannot be overemphasized. This is because sword production in Scandinavia during the Viking Age was indeed limited compared to other regions. Swords often functioned as symbols of wealth and status, passed down through generations as family heirlooms. This further restricted their widespread availability among all Viking warriors. Owning a sword signified social standing and prestige within Viking society. Swords featured intricate craftsmanship and often bore inscriptions or decorations, further contributing to their symbolic value. This was due to factors like access to iron ore and skilled smiths, making swords relatively expensive and scarce. Influenced by Frankish designs, these swords were well-balanced and versatile, effective for both chopping and stabbing. Renowned for their exceptional quality and sharpness, Ulfberht swords were highly sought after, often passed down as heirlooms. A versatile and affordable weapon, the spear served both as a projectile and a melee weapon. Vikings utilized various spear types. The Angon spear was thrown in the air. With a barbed head and weighted butt, could inflict serious wounds or pin enemies to the ground, primarily a thrusting spear. The Framia's slender blade and wooden shaft offered excellent maneuverability in close quarters. Though not their primary weapons, Vikings employed bows and arrows for ranged attacks and hunting. Their bows were typically short and powerful, designed for rapid fire rather than long-range accuracy. The Viking shield, far from being a passive accessory, was a crucial and versatile tool in their defensive arsenal. It wasn't just a wall to hide behind, it was an active extension of their fighting style, offering protection, deflecting blows, and even being used offensively. The most common type, typically made of wood and leather, offered excellent coverage due to their large size. Kite shields. Featuring a pointed bottom edge, these shields provided more protection for the legs while facilitating offensive tactics like shield bashes. Vikings famously formed overlapping shield walls, interlocking their shields to create a nearly impenetrable barrier against arrows, swords, and axes. This tactic effectively turned the entire line into a living fortress. Despite their imposing presence, shield walls weren't static formations. Warriors could shift and adjust, allowing them to move forward, pivot, and even retreat in an organized manner. Leather or iron helmets provided additional protection for the head and neck. While not as ubiquitous as in other cultures, some Vikings wore chainmail or leather armor for further protection. The helmets were something of wealth, as very few Vikings fought with it, because of its scarcity. Rather than a single bodyguard unit, Viking kings relied on a close circle of trusted advisors and warriors known as the herd. These were individuals chosen for their loyalty, skill, and experience in battle. The herd served not just as protectors but also as advisors, diplomats, and sometimes even administrators, forming the core of the king's decision-making circle. They were admired by others because of the lifestyle they lived and enjoyed. You've probably watched Vikings movies where they used horses in time battle. Well, that wasn't really the case with real Vikings battles. Horses were rarely, if not, never used during battles. Unlike some other cultures, Vikings didn't engage in full-fledged cavalry charges during raids. They were difficult to transport in ships when Vikings sailed off for a raid, but were used for other purposes. Their focus on surprise attacks and close-quarters combat favored more agile warriors on foot. Horses were likely owned by wealthier individuals, including powerful jarls and seasoned warriors. These individuals might use horses for scouting, rapid troop movement, or even pursuit after a successful raid. Owning a horse signified wealth and prestige within Viking society, further contributing to their association with leadership and elite warriors. Vikings are often portrayed as fierce warriors consumed by conquest and plunder. But love bloomed among these seafarers too, weaving itself into the fabric of their lives in various ways. Alliances and bloodlines were crucial in Viking society. Arranged marriages secured peace, strengthened political ties, and ensured the continuation of powerful family lines. Love could blossom after the initial union, based on respect, shared values, and mutual support. Take Egil Skallagrimsson, a renowned Icelandic poet,